Hello and welcome, I am SimUK and this is the Train Sim World's West Somerset Railway DLC review. It's one of the only railway stretches in the UK which I actually know pretty darned well, like really well. As soon as I saw this advertised, I jumped straight in and I pre-ordered it. I didn't even bother to read what was going to be included, and that was a mistake. I had some pretty serious concerns regarding the ongoing business practices of Dovetail Games before I bought this DLC, and having now finally taken the time to review it, those concerns have been somewhat altered. But this is a review about the West Somerset Railway DLC and not about Dovetail Games or Train Sim World exactly. So I will be making a concerted effort to remain on point throughout this review. If some little bits happen to sneak in, then I can only apologise, but they do kind of overlap quite a lot. I will probably be making a video on my Dovetail Games and Train Sim World views pretty soon, so just keep an eye out for that if you're interested. So, to the matter at hand then, the West Somerset Railway DLC. As I have already mentioned, this is a railway line which I'm pretty darn familiar with. I have travelled the length of it with my wife and kids on a number of occasions. I have photos of the locos, I have snaps of the tracks, and I even have videos of the stations. Damn it. I was hoping to finish the rhyme there. Let's just agree that I had high expectations. I knew what important features should be where, and I was especially excited for this one. We even took a train ride to meet Santa one year. Now, there are good things about this DLC. I mean, in terms of train simulation, then Dovetail Games and Train Sim World are leaps and bounds ahead of everybody. I mean, they are so far ahead that Dovetail Games is not going to have a competitor in this area for a substantially long amount of time. I did enjoy playing it. It's very chilled out, it's very relaxed, it's fun, it's enjoyable. But as a simulator, it has some serious issues, some serious drawbacks, some serious limitations, some annoying lapses in attention to detail. And that's really what this review is going to be about. Watch the gameplay footage that I include in this review, think about what I'm saying, and at the end of the review, if you still feel like you're interested and excited and want to play this route, then by all means, this is a route that's worth buying. Because there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it, there's just a lot that could be considerably better. Let's start then with the details. This DLC cost me £14.99, and that's because I bought it on Steam pre-order. It will now cost you £17.99 at the time of making this review, and £19.99 at full price. So, what do Dovetail Games say you will get for your money? A 20-mile route of the preserved West Somerset Railway from Bishop's Lydiard to Minehead, the longest standard gauge heritage railway in Britain. Honestly, if you've never been, the views are wonderful. Each year they become a little bit less so as big corporate companies stamp their presence here and there, but still there are large pockets of absolute natural beauty to behold, so I highly recommend you go and invest a bit of your time and money in the West Somerset Railway route. The game includes BR Mark I coaches in both chocolate and crimson and cream liveries. There are two locos, BR Class 47 D1661 the North Star, and other members of the class in British Railways two-tone livery green. BR Class 09 D4107s and other members of the class in British Railways green livery, each with highly detailed, feature-rich driving cabs with accurate, true-to-life performance and handling for both locomotives. We'll see about that. Authentic and detailed sound recordings recorded from the real locomotives. We'll discuss that a little bit as well. Accessible tutorials for the Class 47 and 09 to get you started quickly. Yes. 6 detailed and engaging scenarios for the route. 60 collectibles for you to find, including fire buckets, guard hand lamps, GWR posters and milk churns. What game is this again? Train sim. Train simulator. Yes, I remember now. Thank you. 24-hour service mode diesel gala timetable. The entire download size is 1.6 gigs, which effectively works out at approximately 80 megabytes per mile, except it isn't, because of course the trains themselves take up a large chunk of that 1.6 gigabyte size, so in reality you're probably looking at a little over 40 megabytes per mile, which is not a huge amount, I have to say. So, for this review, I am going to discuss each of these features in some detail. So far, the reviews on Steam are very positive, 75% positive in fact. This is not going to be an overly positive review, sorry to ruin the surprise. I'm making this review well after release, I'm aware of that. This DLC was released on the 24th of May 2018 and there have been 2 other DLC since then, both of which I am looking to review. My issue was that when this DLC landed, it was so disappointing that I actually felt repulsed by Dovetail Games and Train Sim World. Now that might sound a little melodramatic, but remember this is a route that I know and love very well. It's a route that has been the centerpiece for many special memories for me and my family. So this DLC was going to mean a heck of a lot more than just any of the other Train Sim World DLCs. It was a chance for me to go down memory lane anytime I wanted, and it really failed to live up to my expectations in a number of very serious ways. But let's begin the review. So, in terms of graphics and performance, I have to say that the game has improved a lot since I last played it. Admittedly, I'm now running a GTX 1080 Ti, but I am seeing off the back of that a solid 60 FPS on Ultra. In fact, on Ultra, it just dips below 60 FPS when you get to heavily laden areas. So it's not 100% 60 FPS, but I could barely get 30 FPS on very low down graphics before. So it's definitely improved, I think, in terms of performance, and it's noticeably better. But some of the graphics did have this marching ants effect all the way around them, and that didn't look too good. I'm guessing that's something to do with the lighting effects, but like I say, I'll tweak and play with that and see how we get on. The trains themselves, I mean, you can't fault Dovetail Games in this area. The trains look great, as do the carriages, and some of the lighting is really nice too. The stations for me are a little bit hit and miss. Some of the most important things are there, like some of the signalling boxes are present, but I think Dovetail Games Train Sim World is a train simulator where you can walk about. You can get off the train and walk over the platform and get onto another train. That's brilliant, but why on earth can't we actually go and look at these buildings? Why can't we go have the experience of walking into the signalling box, which I've done personally? I've actually been in there. Why can't we go in there and have a look, go up the steps, through the door, and just have a look at all the levers? We don't have to play with them, we don't have to have control of them, but just let us walk around and really experience these places for real. The problem for me is, let's compare Train Sim World to a flight simulator, if you will. Now, if a flight simulator brought out Heathrow and it didn't look exactly like Heathrow, people would throw an absolute paddy, and quite rightly so. And I really do feel like Dovetail Games just failed to reach the level of quality that we're all expecting. I mean, they're capable of it. Certainly they're capable of it, but they're obviously prioritizing something that makes money rather than doing a good job. And that is beginning to wind me up, I have to say. External modelling, this is stuff outside of the stations themselves, I would give a 2 out of 10. I mean, it's really, really poor. Some of the key things are there, like I mentioned, the tall tents of Butlins, because Butlins is right next to Minehead Station. They are there, but Butlins itself is not. And there are other many really important structures which are not there at all either. Now, Dunster is one of the stops along this line. And basically, people get off at Dunster to go to Dunster Castle. And there's a number of other historical buildings there, such as churches and individual hillside buildings. The point is that from Dunster Station, you can see Dunster Castle and the churches and lots of other really important buildings on the hillside, and none of it is there. Again, at Minehead, the main street is so half-assed that it's laughable. I mean, they've got the Minehead Hill, which is really, really iconic and really important. They've got that. And they've done that. I tell you, looking at that is like looking at that in real life. But everything else is wrong, pretty much. I mean, there are some good bits, but the majority of it is just slapdash, half-assed. It's laughable. It really is laughable. It's clear for me that they haven't put in enough effort to making this route authentic. And it comes down to the question, what are we actually buying here? Are we buying the 2 locomotives, which are there and do exist on this route, although I've never seen either of them, truth be told? Or are we buying the route? And if we're buying the route, shouldn't it look exactly like the route? Isn't that the point of buying a route? If I wanted to buy the train, then okay, I want the train to be perfect and I'm not too worried about the route. But if I'm buying the route, I want the route to be perfect, and, well, truth be told, if it comes with trains, I want the trains to be perfect as well. I can't fault Dovetail games on the train. Well, I can. Mostly, I can't fault Dovetail games on the trains that they make. They are spectacular and rivaled by none. But the routes are really, really disappointing, I have to say. Let's move on to realism. Okay, so what have I noticed? The sheep and the cows, they're all static. There's no animation at all. A small amount of effort here. 2 or 3 cows with different animations stuck in a field would just really boost the level of immersion in this game. What I find with Dovetail games, and why I'm getting so disappointed with the whole franchise, I mean, as good as it is, I mean, potentially wise, as good as it is, it's a lack of effort, it's a lack of attention to detail that just breaks the immersion constantly. And sheep and cows in a field that do not move at all, ever, just breaks the immersion. You're no longer experiencing a train ride, you're experiencing a train model ride instead. Also found that on this route the train would stall and restart. Now, I have issues around the tutorials for this whole thing, and I don't think these trains are particularly well modelled. I mean, they look fantastic, but in terms of functionality, for example, you can't go into the engine room. There's no start up from cold and dark. They're not detailed. If we go back to the statement, each locomotive is highly detailed with feature-rich driving cabs with accurate, true-to-life performance and handling for both locomotives. It's not at all. It really, I mean, it's basic. It's the least amount that you could do. That's what's in there. It's the least amount that they could get away with producing without people saying this is trash. That's honestly how I feel. They've missed so much out. So many things. I mean, they've got switches for the lights and they've got switches for that and switches for the other. But in the same block of switches, none of the other switches work. So they've already created the audio, the animation, the functionality is there. The capability to do it is there. But they're not actually doing it. They're just half-assedly implementing the controls. So it's not like you're really a train driver experiencing that for real. You're just experiencing a considerably diluted and dumbed down equivalent of it. That's not the definition of a simulator. It really isn't. If you go into how many flight simulators do you know where they have this dumbed down, half-assed, oh, hang on. Didn't Dovetail Games make a flight simulator like that? Yeah, okay. So there's one. And what happened to that? This is the point. This is the problem. This is meant to be a simulator. And it's capable. It's so capable of being that simulator. But Dovetail Games are a tight-fisted, half-assed, money-centralised, unbelievably focused on making as much money with the least amount of work and effort possible. And that's why all these shortcuts are here. Any shortcut they can take, they take. And that is why I'm starting to lose any respect for them. The skills are there, the abilities are there. I mean, wow. If you imagine how good this could be, nobody would ever complain about anything. Ever, because there would be nothing to complain about. But the fact that they take all these shortcuts just causes so much anger and frustration for real sim fans like myself and you. Let's get on. The sense of speed for me is sometimes it's off. Sometimes it's way too slow. I mean, it feels like we're doing 50% of the speed that it says we're doing. And what this does effectively is it makes it so much harder to judge when to brake. Now, like any game, the more you play it, the more you'll get used to this. And the easier it will be to brake when and where you need to. But the sense of speed for me is off. It's not spot on. And it's always confused me because if you build something to scale, then it's easy to introduce speed that feels the right speed. Now, maybe there's some performance issue behind this, I don't know. But for me, in certain areas especially, or maybe it's certain locos, I'll have to investigate that more, but at times I did feel like the train was doing half the speed that it said it was doing, and that's not good. Maybe it's something I can overcome in time and get used to, but it was something that was noticeable to me. Now, we don't just want to drive the train. We could do that in Train Sim. We want to live the life of a train driver. This means doing all the little jobs, the setups, the maintenance required therein. It's what we were told would be part of the game, and it just hasn't materialised. Why? Because Dovetail Games prioritise new products for profit over improving the core game. It's Train Sim all over again. Just keep releasing the same crap over and over again, and nobody will notice the fact that the core elements still haven't been fixed a year after release. So annoying. Occasionally, and I do mean occasionally, the audio would just cut out for no reason whatsoever. I've no idea why. I wasn't doing anything at all, really, just sitting looking out the window. All of a sudden, the audio would just drop in volume by about 50%. I've no idea what's causing that. I rather suspect that might be a Train Sim World issue rather than this DLC, but it could also quite feasibly be just this DLC. I'm going to mention it in the review purely because either way, it is a noticeable problem. It's quite noisy, the engine's going and everything, and then all of a sudden, boom, 50% of the audio drops off. The audio noises are still there, they're just half as loud. It's a very strange issue. The audio surrounding windows are a problem. On one of the locos, opening the window makes no audio difference to anything at all, and we come back to these highly detailed cab claims from Dovetail Games. That is a clear indication that it is not highly detailed. And in addition to that, one loco, the windows make no difference at all, and in the other loco, again, you have two windows. If you open one, you get an audio difference. You can hear the engine better because obviously the window's open. There's no real sound of wind, which I think is a bit of a shame, but at least you do have an audio difference. But if you open the second window at the same time, nothing happens. It's still the same audio. truth be told, if their whole audio mechanics were better, and they do need to be better because audio in this game is pretty dire, to be honest, then you would have left audio and right audio, 5.1 surround or 7.1 surround. You would hear if the left window's open or the right window's open, or both windows are open. But their attention to detail, as in everything they do, is lacking. It's a half-assed measure. It's corner cutting. Regarding the audio of the trains themselves, I think, yes, they're pretty good. They're better than they have been in the past. They sound pretty authentic to me. I'm no professional, but they certainly sound different and they sound authentic to me. I think the ambience in this DLC is pretty pathetic. It sounds like I'm in the jungle a lot of the time. It's too much. I mean, I'm very fortunate here. I can go out, sit in the garden in the morning, have myself a lovely cup of coffee and just listen to the birds singing from the treetops. And that is how it sounds when you go to Minehead and you're sat along the train line. There's no trains diluting the ambience. That's what you can hear. Birds singing, crickets. It's very idyllic, but they've just overdone it a bit here. I mean, it's too much. It's like torture. It's like you've been shut in a small room surrounded by all these noises and it's just being bombarded into your earlobes. It's horrific. And also, I mean, quite important, there's no sound of the ocean. There's no sound of the crashing waves. So, I mean, they're, again, cutting corners, half-assed. They've got some audio. It sounds okay. They've chucked it in. They've ranked it up. And that's it. Now, I know why they've done that, because if they didn't do that, the fact that there was no ocean sounds or no AI, there's no AI vehicles in this whatsoever, corner cutting again. I mean, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't sound realistic. And that's the problem here, is the audio engine is crap and the audio that they've put in is too limited. I'd say at the most we've got 10, no more than 10 ambience audio noises to contend with. It's really limited. It really is poor. Again, some of the things that I'm talking about are Train Sim World related. So mouse controls on the whole for me are terrible. It is so easy to accidentally set or unset something or overlap or miss what you were aiming for. My suggestion would be when controlling the controls in the cab, why not just physically stop? So for example, you've got 4 set speeds that you can set the accelerator at. It's not called an accelerator, is it? But you know what I'm talking about. You've got 4 set speeds. Why not physically stop at each one? And the only way you can use the mouse to go to second or third is to release the button, press it again and move it again. Because at the moment it is so flicky, it is so uncontrollable that I cannot use the mouse on this. I find it so frustrating. Now I say that in every single review I make for Train Sim World, but I also mention controller support. Where the hell is it? Where the hell is the controller support? This is ridiculous. It's 2018. This is a simulator and you cannot use a controller to play the game. What the hell is going on at Dovetail Games? Their priority has been Xbox and PS4 release. Yeah? That's where their priority has been. They're out now. Where the hell is the controller support? Where is it? You're starting to wind me up. Also, please sort out the key binding area into groups or allow a search option just to make it easier for us to configure our key bindings the way we want to. Now, I'm pretty sure that it was my ranting and raving about the lack of key binding in this game which caused key binding to be added. So hopefully this rant about controller support will kick somebody where they need to be kicked and actually get something done here. I'm also wondering would it be beneficial in some way to have independent control setups for each train? Because obviously the controls and capabilities and setup and design of each train is completely different. So the ability to have independent controls set up for each one might be beneficial. It's not that much work, Dovetail Games. It's not going to make you any money, but it might make people feel a little bit happier about paying you for this content. That way, when the magical day happens where a train turns up that is actually fully modelled, all switches, all controls, all components, then we can actually use it without having to sort of sidestep the controls for everything else. Now, Dovetail Games, I have to give them credit where credit is due. Their whole tutorial system is excellent. I mean, it's basically throughout. The entire game has tutorial elements to it. All the scenarios teach you and guide you, and this hover over blue icon, I think, is exceptional. They used it in Flight Sim World as well, and it works really well. It's absolutely superb. But the initial tutorials for the game are too limited. And the reason why they're too limited is because the trains themselves have absolutely the bare minimum. There is no detail, there is no depth to this at all. None of the locomotives have any depth. There's no engine room, for example. No in-depth tutorial about the train or the systems. I would like to be educated about these locomotives. I would like to be educated about the rail line, about the systems in place. I want to be educated about all of it. None of that's there. It would be so good to see it. A little kudos as well, I've got to say. It only occurred to me whilst I was playing this game that Matt Piddleston is actually doing the audio work for the tutorials. And I have to commend you, Matt. I'm very impressed. I am very impressed. If you ever gave up your job at Dovetail Games, you could easily go and do voiceover work. I am really genuinely impressed. Anyway, the only real thing I would say against the tutorials, the ongoing tutorials throughout the scenarios, is it's a little bit too picky sometimes. I would prefer a bigger target. So when they say move the locomotive from here to there, and there's a point marker that turns up, and you've got to hit that point marker. It's about 10 meters wide, which seems quite a lot, really. But when you're moving 300 tons of train, it's a little bit difficult to slow it down perfectly every single time. I'm sure with experience it wouldn't be such an issue, but why not just say, right, you have to be at least this far along the track in order for us to change the points. But, you can be anywhere past that point by sort of 50 metres. Why not have that much to aim at? Why does it have to be such a small point? I mean, why not say at least past this point? So if you hit that point and go a little bit past it, that's okay, because the point we need to change is behind you. So rather than saying you have to be exactly in this circle, why not just say anywhere past this circle? That would be so much better, I think. So is this game good value for money? What is it we're actually buying here? And this is really the reason why I'm not giving this a positive review. Are we buying the route, or are we buying the locomotives? Perhaps they're a package. They belong together, right? Yes? Well, no, not quite exactly. Although the West Somerset Railway line does indeed have an impressive selection of diesel locomotives, including a Class 47 known as the North Star, the primary and most popular locomotive are steam, which they maintain and run on a daily basis, and they're some of the best preserved steam locomotives in the world, in my humble opinion. Now, if you look at the train timetable at Minehead, it is steam, 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 and steam. I don't think I've ever seen a diesel on the line. They do have them, they do run them, but I've never seen them. I mean, the primary reason people go there is to go on a steam train. If you went to Minehead to go on a steam train and they delivered you a diesel, you're probably going to be a bit disappointed. And that's how I feel. I have to concede, I do have something of an emotional connection to this route, and the volunteers who give their time and energy so that we might get to enjoy the wonderful experiences that only steam locomotives can provide. My family and I have spoken to the drivers, the engineers, the ticket sellers and the station masters. We have photos of us in the cab. So I was expecting something which reminded me of all this. Perhaps I was just expecting too much, and perhaps I should have read the details before I bought this game. At the very, very least, for this route, I expected a steam locomotive. Now, it wouldn't be so bad if a steam locomotive were to follow, and I could put that steam locomotive on this track. But as Train Sim World currently stands, you cannot use any of the trains you own on any of the other routes. You can only run that train and that route together. So fundamentally, if that is the case, and it doesn't change in the future, then this route is irrevocably, completely and forever broken and pointless for a person like me, because it will never have a steam engine on it. So I ask you, Dovetail Games, what the hell are you going to do? Are you going to allow us to swap our trains onto any route that we own, which should be the standard process? Or are you going to release the same route again with just a steam train on it? Is this all about maximising profit? Is that what this is? As soon as a train simulator competitor arrives, and let's be honest, the competition that you have at the moment is very small, and it's clear that the amount of work, the amount of time and effort required to make something like this realistic is gargantuan. But as soon as somebody does produce something that is like a flight simulator dashboard with all the switches and controls and a cold and dark start available, then Dovetail Games, people are going to drop you like a hot potato. You have been constantly leading people on with a carrot on a stick. This is going to be included. That is going to be included. We're going to improve this. We're going to improve that. Well, do you know what? I think it's time we started to see some real improvements, because as soon as you release something other than game-breaking immediate bugs, you forget about it. You never come back to fix it. And the same is to be said of the core of Train Sim World. Now, I said I wasn't going to go into a rant about Train Sim World and Dovetail Games, so I'm going to stop right there. But what I am going to say, what I am going to tell you is what I would like to see added. I would like the ability to open and close the doors when you're not in the driver's seat. And if the train is on a short platform, don't open all the bloody doors. Just open the doors that are on the platform. This is ridiculous. I'd like more area to walk around outside of the train and more things to interact with. Oddly, and I didn't think I would, I really liked finding the posters. It gave me a reason to get off the train and go and explore. But in doing that, I realised how basic and limited the stations were. I've mentioned this before, and I think it should be implemented completely, but why can't we interact more with our surroundings? Why can't we finish a scenario by going into the ticket office or leaving the station completely? I think the cabs need to have more interaction. Not everything is operational. In fact, it's the bare minimum, but there is so much that isn't there. Why can't we have cold and dark starts? The audio, the whole audio engine needs to be looked at. We need better audio. We need the windows to change the noises inside the cab. A large part of this route is the sea, and the animation for the sea is completely missing. There's none. It's absolutely static. There's no audio for the ocean either. We need these things to be included. If you're selling the route, then the route needs to be authentic, and at the moment it just isn't. The ambiance audio is a disgrace. It is so half-assed, it's lapsadaisical. Train Sim even had seat animation. Okay, it wasn't the best, in fact it was pretty bloody awful, but at least it was there. At least there was something. I've also had the pleasure, as I mentioned earlier, of going into the signal box at Blue Anchor, and adding something like this to the game would be excellent. Why can't we model the stations realistically? Okay, externally, outside of the stations, sure. A bit of artistic license is permitted there. At least make an effort and make sure that you get the key elements in there, like Dunster Castle and all the churches and the towers that are clearly visible throughout the entire region. Why can't we add these things and really get the immersion level up? Why can't you deliver? We pay you the money. Why can't you deliver the content? Dynamic weather. The game is perfectly suited for dynamic weather. In fact, you have all the weather animations there. We can pick them. Why can't you make it dynamic? Why can't the weather change during a run? That would be so good. Obviously, the ability to use any train on any track/route that I own is a necessity, especially now that you've delivered a wonderful steam route without a flipping steam train on it, and controller support. Not just Xbox 360, but any controller I own. If I want to use a combination of a Rhino, keyboard and Cytec side panel, then you ought to enable that. You ought to support that. This is 2018 and you're really taking the mickey by continuously releasing new content but not fixing the core limitations that this game currently has. My name's SimUK. This has been a bit of a negative review, but in all honesty, it's quite enjoyable. When you take away all the problems, when you just say, okay, this is what we're limited to, then the route itself, the trains, the whole thing is quite chilled out and quite realistic. But it could be so much better. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves till next time. Goodbye. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video today. I really appreciate you coming along and taking the time to do that. I want to say a big thank you to each and every one of you who watched this video today. Special big thank you to our patrons and supporters on Twitch. But everybody who comes and watches, you all count, you are all part of this. And I thank you so much. If you hit that like button, I will like you twice as much. Even more than that, perhaps. It is for you guys that I make these videos, so it matters to me a huge amount if you enjoy watching them, and if you don't, you need to tell me. So thanks for watching, take care of yourselves, until next time, goodbye for now.